We have this idea that great leaders have all the answers. But what if that's just one of the biggest myths out there? The truth is, they don't. The real skill is learning how to navigate without a map. And that's exactly what we're going to get into. That's the core idea right there. I mean, think about it. From Abraham Lincoln to the CEOs trying to steer their companies through a pandemic, their defining trait wasn't some crystal ball. It was their ability to make these huge decisions while the fog was at its thickest. So how do they do it, right? How do they manage to function and even thrive when they honestly have no idea how things are going to turn out? That's the big question we're going to answer. Okay, first things first, we need to understand why uncertainty feels so completely paralyzing. Turns out our brains are literally hardwired to hate it. Just think about that for a second. Our brains would rather take a guaranteed, painful shock than deal with the possibility of a shock. The not knowing part is literally more stressful than the bad thing itself. It's because our brain treats ambiguity as a direct threat to our survival. So let's dive a little deeper into what's actually going on inside our heads when we're staring into the unknown. It's basically a three-step chain reaction. First, your brain spots some uncertainty. Right away, your amygdala, that's your ancient primal alarm system, it fires up and kicks off that whole fight or flight response. And here's the crucial part. Your prefrontal cortex, the part you need for rational thinking and empathy, it just gets knocked offline. This is exactly why we tend to default to our worst behaviors when we're under pressure. And get this, that stress, it's contagious. There was this Danish study that found a leader's stress literally gets transmitted to their team, and you can still detect it a full year later. Teams catch anxiety from their leaders just like a virus. And to make it all worse, leadership can be an incredibly lonely job. Over half of CEOs say they feel isolated, and they believe it directly hurts how they perform. It's like the higher you climb, the fewer people you feel you can be truly honest with. Okay, so that's the problem. It's a big one. But now let's talk about the solutions. We're going to look at some of the mental models that great leaders use to find their way through all this fog. You might have heard the term VUCA. The US Army came up with it to describe the chaotic world after the Cold War. But what's really useful is its counterpart, VUCA Prime. It's brilliant, actually. It reframes each problem into a direct action. Vision is the antidote to volatility. Understanding beats uncertainty. Clarity cuts through complexity, and agility overcomes ambiguity. The Sign-Of-In framework is another super powerful tool. It basically shows that you can't use the same approach for every problem. In a complex situation where you don't really know cause and effect, the right move is to run little experiments. You probe, then you see what happens, and then you respond. But in a truly chaotic situation, like a full-blown crisis, you have to act first, just to stabilize things. Only then can you step back and make sense of it all. Leaders really get into trouble when they apply the wrong tool to the situation. I love this next one. It's called Commander's Intent, and it shows you how to delegate when everything is in chaos. Instead of trying to micromanage every single step, a great leader just communicates the ultimate goal, the why behind the mission. It's about shifting from being a chess master, trying to control every piece, to being a gardener who just creates the right conditions for the team to grow and succeed on their own. Okay, frameworks are great, but let's talk about real people. Let's look at some leaders who actually lived these principles when the pressure was almost unbearable. The night before D-Day, Dwight Eisenhower scribbled this note in his wallet. He was taking full responsibility for what could have been a catastrophic failure. He hadn't just accepted the risk, he owned it completely, before anyone knew the outcome. That is the definition of ultimate accountability. And then you have the story of Ernest Shackleton. I mean, it's just the ultimate case study. When his ship, the Endurance, was crushed by ice, the original mission to cross Antarctica was done. So he completely reframed the goal. It was no longer about exploration. It was about one thing: getting every single man home alive. And after this unbelievable multi-year ordeal, he did it. Let's jump to a more recent crisis. When COVID hit, Airbnb lost 80% of its business in 8 weeks. Brian Chesky had to lay off nearly 2,000 people. But the memo he wrote, it became a masterclass in compassionate leadership. He treated people with dignity, gave them generous support, and actively helped them find new jobs. Just 7 months later, Airbnb had one of the most successful IPOs in history. And you can't talk about this without mentioning the absolute genius of Nelson Mandela. To heal a nation that was on the brink of civil war, he embraced a symbol of the old oppressive regime. By putting on the jersey of the Springboks, a rugby team loved by white South Africans but hated by the black majority, he performed this single powerful act of reconciliation that really helped change the future of an entire country. So, when the frameworks aren't quite enough and the map is completely gone, what guides these leaders? Well, they fall back on something deeper. They rely on their internal compass, their values. This idea is a total game changer. It's named after Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. He noticed something fascinating. It was the pure optimists, the ones who kept saying, "We'll be out by Christmas," who broke first. The paradox is that you need two things at once: unwavering faith that you will prevail in the end, and the discipline to confront the most brutal, awful facts of your current reality. Jeff Bezos has a really practical take on this. He says if you wait for 100% certainty to make a decision, you're going to be too slow. The key is to distinguish between one-way door decisions, the ones that are irreversible, and two-way door decisions that you can easily walk back. And you should make those two-way door decisions fast. In his world, being slow is way more expensive than being wrong. All of this points to this fascinating paradox that researcher Jim Collins discovered. The most effective leaders, he calls them level 5 leaders, are a blend of two seemingly opposite traits. They have this intense, unstoppable professional will, but it's combined with a deep personal humility. When things go well, they look out the window to give credit to others. And when things go badly, they look in the mirror to take the blame themselves. And this is what it looks like when your values become your actual operating manual. Back in 1982, after someone laced Tylenol with cyanide, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, James Burke, didn't hesitate. He was guided by the company's official credo. He ordered a massive recall of 31 million bottles, which cost over $100 million. That incredible transparency and values-driven decision turned a total disaster into the absolute gold standard for how to manage a crisis. So ultimately, the big takeaway here is that uncertainty isn't some problem that we need to solve. It's just a condition we have to navigate. The real goal isn't just to survive it, but to actually become stronger because of it. As the writer Nassim Taleb puts it, wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. The best leaders don't fear the wind, they build a fire.